Ferals were a much more dangerous threat. A lot of them weren't kids anymore. Some were teenagers, some full-grown. They were fast, smart, and if they chose fight instead of flight, they could really mess up your day. Of course, HR would always try and dart them, and of course that didn't always work. When a 200-pound feral bull is charging balls out for your ass, a couple of cc's of trank ain't gonna drop him before he hits home. A lot of HRs got really badly smashed up. A few had to be tagged and bagged. The brass had to step in and assign a squad of grunts for escort. If a dart didn't stop a feral, we sure as hell did. Nothing screams as high as a feral with a pie round burning in his gut. The HR pukes had a real problem with that. They were all volunteers, all sticking to this code that human life, any human's life, was worth trying to save. I guess history sort of backed them up now, you know? Seeing all those people that they managed to rehabilitate, all the ones we would have just shot on sight.
Did feral people, that is, know how to use firearms?
They didn't know how to do anything human. That's why they were ferals. No, the body armor was for protection against some of the regular people we found. I'm not talking organized rebels, just the odd lamo, last man on Earth. There was always one or two in every town, some dude or chick who managed to survive. I read somewhere that the United States had the highest number of them in the world. Something about our individualistic nature or something. They hadn't seen real people in so long, a lot of the initial shooting was just accidental or just reflex. Most of the time we managed to talk them down. Those we called RCs, Robinson Crusoes. That was the polite term for the ones who were cool. The ones we called lamos, those were the ones who were a little too used to being king. King of what? I don't know. G's and quislings and crazy F-critters. But I guess in their mind they were living the good life, and here we were going to take it all away. That's how I got tagged. We were closing on the Sears Tower in Chicago. Chicago. That was enough nightmares for 3 lifetimes. It was the middle of winter, wind whipping off the lake so hard you could barely stand, and suddenly I felt Thor's hammer smash me in the head. Slug from a high-powered hunting rifle. I never complained about our hardcovers anymore after that. The gang in the tower, they had their own little kingdom, and they weren't giving it up for anyone. That was one of the few times we went full convent. Saws, nades, that's when the Bradleys started making a comeback. After Chicago, the brass knew we were in a full multi-threat environment. It was back to hardcovers and body armor, even in summer. Thanks, Windy City. Each squad was issued pamphlets with the threat pyramid. It was ranked according to probability, not lethality. Zach at the bottom, then F-critters, ferals, quislings, and finally lamos. I know a lot of guys from AG South like to bitch about how they always had it tougher on their end, how for us, winter took care of Zach's whole threat level. Yeah, sure, and replace it with another one, winter. What do they say the average temperatures dropped? 10 degrees, 15 in some areas? Yeah. We had it real easy, up to our ass in gray snow, knowing that for every 5 Zach sickles you cracked, there'd be at least as many up and at 'em at the first thaw. At least the guys down south knew that once they swept an area, it stayed swept. They didn't have to worry about rear area attacks like us. We swept every area at least 3 times. We used everything from ramrods and sniffer Ks to this new high-tech ground radar. Over and over again, and all of this in the dead of winter. We lost more guys to frostbite than to anything else. And still, every spring, you just knew it'd be like, oh shit, here we go again. I mean, even today, with all the sweeps and civilian volunteer groups, spring's like winter used to be. Nature letting us know the good life's over for another 8 months.
Tell me about liberating the isolated zones.
Always a hard fight, every single one. Remember, these zones were still under siege, hundreds, maybe even thousands. The people holed up in the twin forts of Comerica Park, Ford Field. They must have had a combined moat, that's what we called them, moats, of at least 1 million Gs. That was a 3-day slugfest, made Hope look like a minor skirmish. That was the only time I ever really thought we were going to be overrun. They piled up so high I thought we'd be buried, literally, in a landslide of corpses. Battles like that, they'd leave you so fried, just wasted, body and mind. You'd want to sleep, nothing more, not to eat or bathe or even fuck. You just want to find someplace warm and dry, close your eyes, forget everything.
What were the reactions of the people that you liberated?
Kind of a mix. The military zones, that was pretty low-key. A lot of formal ceremonies, raising and lowering of flags. I relieve you, sir, I stand relieved, shit like that. There was also a little bit of bravado. You know, we didn't really need any rescuing and all. I understand. Every grunt wants to be the one riding over the hill. No one wants to be the one in the fort. Sure you didn't need rescuing, buddy. Sometimes it was true, like the Zoomies outside Omaha. They were a strategic hub for airdrops, regular flights almost on the hour. They were actually living better than us. Fresh chow, hot showers, soft beds. It almost felt like we were being rescued. On the other hand, you had the jarheads at Rock Island. They wouldn't let on how rough they had it, and that was cool with us. For what they went through, bragging rights was the least we could give them. Never met any of them personally, but I've heard stories.
What about the civilian zones?
Different story entirely. We were so the shit. They'd be cheering and shouting. It was like what you'd think war was supposed to be. Those old black and whites of GIs marching into Paris or wherever. Hey, we were like rock stars. I got more... Well, if there's a bunch of little dudes between here and the hero city that happen to look like me...
But there were exceptions.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe not all the time, but there'd be one person, this angry face in the crowd, screaming shit at you. What the fuck took you so long? My husband died 2 weeks ago. My mother died waiting for you. We lost half our people last summer. Where the fuck were you when we needed you? People holding up photos, faces. When we marched into Janesville, Wisconsin, someone's holding up a sign with the picture of a smiling little girl. The words above it read, "Better late than never?" He got beat down by his own people. They shouldn't have done that. That's the kind of shit we saw. Shit that keeps you awake when you haven't slept in 5 nights. Rarely, like blue moon rarely, we'd enter a zone where we were totally not welcome. In Valley City, North Dakota, they were like, "Fuck you, Army, you ran out on us, we don't need you."
Was that a secessionist zone?
No, at least these people let us in. The Rebs only welcomed you with gunshots. I never got close to any of those zones. The brass had special units for Rebs. I saw them on the road once, heading toward the Black Hills. That was the first time since crossing the Rockies that I ever saw tanks. Bad feeling. You knew how that was going to end.
There's been a lot of stories about questionable survival methods used by certain isolated zones.
Yeah? So, ask them about it.
Did you see any?
Nope, and I didn't want to. People tried to tell me about it, people we liberated. They were so wound up inside, they just wanted to get it off their chest. You know what I used to say to them? Keep it on your chest. Your war's over. I didn't need any more rocks in my ruck, you know?
What about afterward? Did you talk to any of those people?
Yeah, and I read a lot about the trials.
How did they make you feel?
Shit, I don't know. Who am I to judge these people? I wasn't there. I didn't have to deal with that. This conversation we're having now, this question of what if, I didn't have time for that back then. I still had a job to do, and I already had enough on my chest. I know historians like to talk about how the U.S. Army had such a low casualty rate during the advance. Low as in compared to other countries, China or maybe the Ruskies. Low as in only counting the casualties caused by Zach. There were a million ways to get it on that road, and over 2/3 weren't on that pyramid. Sickness was a big one, the kinds of diseases that were supposed to be gone, like in the Dark Ages or something. Yeah, we took our pills, had our shots, ate well, and had regular checkups. But there was just so much shit everywhere, in the dirt, the water, in the rain, and the air we breathed. Every time we entered a city or liberated a zone, at least one guy would be gone. If not dead, then removed for quarantine. In Detroit, we lost a whole platoon to Spanish flu. The brass really freaked on that one. Quarantined the whole battalion for 2 weeks.